In May of 2017, I had the very good fortune to go to Thailand with Ned and Molly Gorski, Bob Hollenbeck, and Whitney Peterson to one of Paul Muldar's Pyro holidays. It was a fabulous, fabulous holiday, highly recommended. The first week we spent in his shop building shells, mostly multi-break shells, anywhere from 1 break up through 4 breaks, in diameters from 4 inches up through 8 inches. One of the things that we worked a lot with was some of the Maltese techniques. And what I want to do in this video today is show you some of the tricks that I picked up for doing the Maltese spiking, which is extremely distinct and results in a shell that's almost completely covered with string. Now, when we go to do this shell, to spike it, we're going to be putting a pattern on like this, you can see here. And we're going to be completely covering this shell with string, both horizontally and vertically. And in order to get this pattern onto the shell, we need to make a little bit of a pattern on the shell itself that we can use it to guide when we start doing the stringing. The easiest way I've found to do this is I make a pattern by cutting a piece of paper, same size as my disc, and I want to get 16 even marks on here that I'll be able to use to get 16 evenly spaced marks. So what I do to get that, it's really pretty easy, is I just take and fold this in half. I fold it in half again. And again. I'll fold it back in 2 directions to avoid getting it too thick. And then we'll fold the whole thing in half one more time. And when we unfold this, we've got folds in it that mark out 16 different segments. So we'll take a magic marker here and just mark where those come out to the edges of the pattern. And now we've got 2 problems with using this pattern to transfer those onto the shell, and the main one is we've got a hole in the middle here that we need to have. So I'm going to take a pair of scissors here and just cut a middle out of it. Okay, so that'll let us put it down over our spoolette or our plug in the bottom of, if it's for a multi-break. And then I want to put a pattern on this that is going to show us where the strings are going to go. So I'm going to go from one point at the edge across to one that's one off of directly across. Okay, and I'll put another one on the other side. I'll go out one more set of marks and put a mark. And same on this side. And then we'll do it this way also, at 90 degrees. Okay, and this gives us a pattern now on our template that will look a lot like the pattern that we've got on the bottom of the shell here. So I'm going to take now an unmarked shell, and this is for an intermediate break of a multi-break. It's got a plug in the bottom where the spoolette from the next break will go on, and it's got a spoolette on the one end. So we'll take this and just hold it on the top of the shell. I'm going to take a ruler and put it up against the shell here at an arbitrary point, straight up and down. And we'll just draw a line right up the side. That's so that we can get the same pattern on the top and bottom of the shell. And we'll go around and transfer these marks now onto our shell. This pattern is one that I've worked out when I was in Thailand, and it seems to give a pretty good coverage without getting too big a buildup of string right around the spoolette. On this intermediate break, on the bottom we have that big sort of fat plug, and we will get some buildup around that, but we'll see that as we get into actually stringing the shell. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and draw those lines on the same as are on my template. And this will be very useful in keeping us from getting confused as we go to start putting the strings on. Okay, and now I'm gonna turn the camera off while I do the bottom, transfer all those marks to the bottom, because there's not really a lot to be learned from doing that, and then we'll come back to it. Okay, I've now got my marks on around the bottom of the shell and the top of the shell, and I'm going to now worry about what I start to put string on. And what's going to happen, I'm going to have a piece of string running across. I'm going to have string coming across like this, and it tends to slip off, and that's a real problem. And one of the things that we figured out when we were in Thailand was that if you take a block of good old roofing tar and go around and put a nice coating of tar right on the edge, just rubbing it on, that makes that edge sticky enough that that the strings won't slip nearly as badly. And this simplifies life a whole lot. We tried glue, we tried all sorts of things, and it turned out tar seemed to work the best. Having a block of roofing tar in your shop, as it turns out, is a very useful thing. You can make tar string with it by just rubbing it onto the string. You can use it for this. All sorts of uses. Okay, let's get the bottom edge. Okay, there we go. We've got a nice layer of tar around the edge of the bottom and the top. And we're going to be ready to start stringing it. One of the problems that we had in doing the Maltese spiking was that the string that we're using, which I bought from Ned on fireworking.com, tends to be very hairy. It's a thin twine, it doesn't have much stretch, and it has quite a bit of hair hanging off of it. And so if you let these strings get close to each other, those hairs tend to intertwine, the multiple strands get tangled up together, and you've got a problem to deal with. So in order to deal with this, I built a rack for my 4 balls of string that's basically just 4 dowels in a piece of wood, and then I made some little wire guides out of bent coat hanger wire that will guide the strings up off of those spools and keep them separated as they come off the spools. And this helps a great deal in keeping the strings from getting intertangled with each other. And one of the things in trying to keep the strings separated from each other and a little tension on them is I've developed this little tool. And this is made out of a high density plastic that is slippery but is pretty strong. And I've got 2 pieces. I've got the main bottom piece of it here, which has 4 holes in it, which probably, I'm not sure if you could see them on the camera. They're right here, 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 and here, and they come through that block at an angle. And then there's a second piece that's on the top that is the pressure bar, and it's held down by these springs and wing nuts. And what this is going to do is allow us to have the strings, the 4 strings, coming onto our shell, coming next to each other but without getting tangled. And this, it turns out, is really, really important to be able to do. So I'm going to pull my set of string up here onto the table for a moment. Okay, so I've got my stringing machine here. And I'm going to take and bring the strings from each one up through the corresponding hole in my little tool here. String 3 and string 4. Okay, so I've got all my strings coming through the thing now. And I'm going to tighten down the wing nuts some, put a little bit of tension on. And by tightening these wing nuts down more on the springs, you can increase the tension that it's going to put on the string. Backing them off, you can decrease the tension. And our objective here is to get an amount of tension that will keep those strings running smoothly like that, but not so much tension that we break the strings, because this is not a very strong string. It's pretty easy to break them sometimes, and we get the strength on. There we go, that feels good. Okay, this, as it turns out, has proven to be really, really great, because it lets me keep the strings next to each other and just lay them smoothly onto the shell. Okay, so I'm going to change the setup here so that you'll be able to see what I'm doing as I start stringing the shell. Okay, now I've got my set of strings down here with their string guides, and the strings are strung up through my tensioning device, and I'm ready to start stringing a shell. So the first thing I'm going to do is take my 4 strings, and we're going to throw a clove hitch on here to get things started. Okay, so I've got my 4 strings coming off of the machine, and I'm going to get them right next to each other. And then we're going to start, and I'm going to do this strip. I'm going to start right here, and I'm going to lay those on right at the edge of this strip. I'm going to be doing this strip across my shell. And we'll take him down to make sure he's right at the mark. And as you can see, these strings come out pretty nicely next to each other, and they're kept straightened out by the device. And I need a little bit more tar on there. How did my and we just go round and round, laying on string. Okay, we've got our first set in there. We're going to swing over now and start with a set over here, opposite it. And as you can see, the string tensioning device is keeping these strings coming off without getting tangled, and lets me lay on a nice even band of 4 strings at a time. Okay, I've got the first 2 bands on. Now we'll rotate again and go to one of the ones in the other direction. Now you may have noticed that when I start a new band, I start at the side that's the farthest away from the spoolette. And the reason for that is that then if I get that locked in at that point and that point, the rest of the bands will just rest against that, and I won't have to be fighting the string's tendency to try and fall off the edge of the shell for the rest of the time that I'm putting that band on. Okay, we're coming back up the top. We're at the end of that one. We'll swing around and do the one opposite it. Okay. And we're coming around. Okay, we've got half of our strings on now. And we're going to go now to working across at here to here, here to here. So I'm going to swing around to here now, and we'll just start right next to the band that's already in place. And like I said, we're going to go over to here. Okay, and we're getting that band filled in now. Swing around again. Now I'm going to stop here for just a moment, and I'm going to take a short piece of string, doesn't need to be very long, and I'm going to use my awl to lift this string up a little bit and slide this piece under it. And we're going to leave him there, and we'll use him a little bit later. We'll see why I did that, but it is kind of a nice trick. Okay, so we're going to come around and we're going to do the other side the same way. Okay, that finishes up that band. Now we'll rotate around and pick up another band. And we'll come up with our last band for that one. We'll go around here and start on our last band. Okay, and we now have our shell completely covered in string on the verticals. And I'm going to come around the spoolette once here, and then I'm going to go off, and what I have to do now is I have to go over the edge and go around the shell and get it to wrapping down at the bottom. And when you do this in the Italian-American style, a la Fulcanelli, you do this by really crimping this down into the corner of the shell here, where you're coming across the edge. And these shell casings, the Maltese casings, are very hard, and so it's really difficult to do that. And so what I'm going to do is just run it through where I put this extra string in, and I'm going to tie him on there. And this is, we tried a number of things, putting some glue on there, putting a little tar on there. This seems to work the best for me and keeps that string from slipping where it comes over the edge. Okay, so I've got him tied down there now. And let's get my strings organized again. Okay, and now I'm going to go down diagonally around the shell. I'll go down fairly near the bottom, but not so close we're in danger of falling off the edge. And start wrapping our horizontals on. Once around, jump up over the other string, and now we're going to just start laying it on, and this is just going round and round and round. Nothing fancy here. So this will take me a while to get this wound on all the way up the shell. I'm just laying it on in right next to the previous time around, and I'll go all the way up to the top. And I'm going to turn the camera off for a little bit because it would get really, really boring. Okay, I've now got most of the string on there. I'm getting near the top, so we'll finish up with these last few wraps. Okay, we're pretty much done there. Now, in a Fulcanelli style thing, you'd now throw a clove hitch around the whole shell to tie this string off, but we're going to do it a little bit different way. I'm going to cut my strings right off. Okay, and now what I'm going to do, I'm going to take my awl and I'm going to lift up some strings on the top there. And I'm actually going to take the ends of my strings and slide them under there. Okay, so I've pulled these strings under that string that's coming across the top of the shell. And then I just pop it down there and go around one more time under the string. And take out my awl. Trim back my strings. And there we go, we are done. We have created a, where's the camera? Okay, I've got it strung, the sides are completely covered, both directions. We have that nice pattern on the bottom and on the top. And we would now go to pasting it. What the Maltese do is they use a half and half mixture of white paste, good old Elmer's, and water, and they completely soak in the strings on the top of the shell and the bottom of the shell, and then they use wheat paste on the sides. Why, I don't know. And then they paste it in similar to the way you do an Italian-American shell, and at that point you'd have a completed braid. So what we've covered here is we've got the method of making a pattern for the end of the shell to be able to see what we're doing, and we've got the trick of using tar around the edges to keep the string from slipping, putting the little piece of string in here at the edge to tie it where it makes the transition from doing the verticals to doing the horizontals, and then again using the awl to lift the strings and tie it off up here to finish it up. So this device is something that I've found so useful in doing these that I've made up a bunch more of these, and I have them for sale at tad1@cornell.edu, or I will have them with me at the convention if you're interested in buying one. I really like the way the breaks I get with these shells, and I really like the tooling and tricks I've figured out for doing the Maltese stringing. So, thanks very much.